Just be quiet. You might scare them off.
Who are them? It's midnight and we're in the middle of an old railroad. There aren't any souls.
Wow. Is that real? You see that? Blue and green flying lights. Yeah, it's creepy, dude.
Locals say those are women wandering around this place searching for their husbands who once got in a train accident, and these are their lanterns.
A train accident? When did this happen?
I don't know. More than 100 years ago, maybe.
You mean these lights are… Dude, let's get out of here. They're getting closer. Two guys run away in horror from a sinister railroad where people have been seeing strange, mysterious lights for years. And could you tell? I did both voices. Anyway. But it's not only about the railroad. In the nearby houses, doors slam on their own. People hear footsteps. Some objects move out of the blue. Silence becomes ominous. Birds behave strangely. Animals get worried. People hear creepy whispers. Cars shake slightly. Some people experience scary visions. In short, welcome to Somerville, a small town located in South Carolina. If you don't believe in all these stranger things, then you can check it out for yourself. Talk to people who live there and they'll share bizarre stories with you. Yeah, maybe you won't hear whispers or see a shaking car, but if you're really interested, go to the old railroad and wait for a phenomenon called Somerville Lantern. You're unlikely to solve the mystery of the Somerville Lanterns by yourself, but if you still want to play the role of a detective for a while, here are some clues for you. No one knows exactly how people spotted the lights there, but the first mentions date back to the middle of the 20th century. People wrote about glowing spheres. Most often, these were green and blue. They were hovering over a narrow section of the Sheep Island Road. Now, keep in mind that in the past, builders made some road repairs in that area, and they didn't remove some parts of the old rails before installing new ones directly above them. In short, there's a huge pile of metal hiding here. Okay, let's move on. The next detail concerns not only Somerville, but also the nearest cities, and this is some serious seismic activity. In 1886, the small town of Charleston faced the most devastating earthquake in the southeastern United States. It became one of the most tragic events in eastern North America. On August 31st at 9:51 p.m., strong tremors destroyed many houses. Absolutely all the buildings in this small town were damaged. Loads of people were hurt. The damage from the disaster amounted to about $5 to $6 million. In the 19th century, this was a huge sum, equivalent to about $170 to $204 million today. Seismic activity damaged the railroad along a 50-mile stretch. The steel rails got S-shaped curves, the tracks were displaced, and traffic stopped completely. Sand craters formed on the ground, and fountains of water poured from them. Cracks formed along the banks of canals and streams, and trees were uprooted. Yeah, it all sounds terrible, but what does it have to do with our town? Somerville is located 15 miles northwest of Charleston, and of course, the disaster affected it too. Now, you probably understand why builders had to repair the railroad, and I hope you remember that they simply buried some old metal parts underground. Okay, now we know about the seismic activity in that region. This might explain why some cars shake, why objects move, and why doors close all on their own. But what about the lights? Do you think they might also be caused by an earthquake? Well, you're absolutely right. There's such a phenomenon as earthquake lights. The U.S. Geological Survey describes them as glowing spheres, discharges, or sparks that appear in some places before, during, and after earthquakes. But unfortunately, scientists know too little about all this. The thing is, earthquake lights are a rare phenomenon. There's no systematic and clear scenario according to which they can appear. There's a powerful earthquake in one place, and these lights don't appear. There's a slight tremor in another place, and the lights are hovering over the ground. We know too little about them, but it seems to be enough to solve the mystery of Somerville. When an earthquake occurs, the tectonic plates of Earth's crust shift. Various gases are released from the deep bowels of our planet. I can relate. Then some chemical reactions occur, and they start to glow and turn blue and green. But what gases have such properties? Call any chemist to help you with the investigation, and you will get the answer. Methane and radon, for example, are ideal for creating eerie lights. Now, by the way, there's another version. It's possible that seismic activity deforms minerals inside the Earth's crust and thus creates an electric charge that makes air molecules glow. But let's focus on the gas theory. So underground gases leak out during earthquakes. Then they ignite, and voila! We have the legend about a woman looking for her husband on the railroad tracks. But wait a minute, there are a couple more questions. What ignites these gases? The area where people observe this phenomenon is surrounded by nature. There are no houses, farms, or gas stations there. Only metal tracks. And radon and methane need a spark to ignite. Okay, try to guess. How can railroad tracks produce a spark? Do you remember what happened to the old railroad when constructors built a new one? They left it in the ground. That is, piles of scrap metal lie under the new railroad. Let's say, at one point, another earthquake occurs. Those underground metal parts rub into each other and create a spark. At the same moment, radon or methane leaks out, and we see those colorful lights. Congratulations, the investigation is over. But don't rush, this is just a guess. Scientists who are trying to solve this mystery have not proven the exact cause yet. But facts point to this theory. For example, in August 1959, a small earthquake occurred. And do you know where it was? Just 2.5 miles from the road where people most often notice the Somerville lights. At the end of 1960, a couple more weak earthquakes were recorded in the area. On the other hand, there were a few earthquakes, but people saw the lights much more often. So, what's the explanation? Seismic activity can be unnoticeable there and take place every day. Such earthquakes are so weak that people don't notice them, but strong enough for methane and radon to come out. When did all this seismic activity start? It seems it began at the end of the 19th century, when the worst earthquake occurred in Charleston. The big earthquake triggered many small ones that are still shaking the ground. Earthquakes can also explain the strange behavior of animals and birds. Animals are more sensitive to seismic activity, and every tremor scares them. Okay, but what about those whispers and the sounds of footsteps that people hear? What about creepy visions? Well, most likely, it's just human imagination. Where strange things happen, people tell hundreds and thousands of stories to each other. Someone exaggerates and someone hears something differently. That's how scary stories that have nothing to do with real life appear. Like social media. What will happen next? Scientists will probably adjust their theory. To do this, they need to check the presence of radon and methane in the fault sites and conduct a couple of experiments. For example, artificially ignite these gases and see what happens. It's also necessary to track the time when the lights appear and compare it with the time of seismic activity. If these two factors coincide, the case will finally be solved. This information will help seismologists around the world learn more about the geological features of Earth's crust. Moreover, research in this area will help predict earthquakes in advance, which could save many lives in the future. Okay, the Somerville lantern case is solved. How about investigating other cases with strange lights? Yes, people have observed similar phenomena all over the world. For example, mysterious lights in the swamps, Marfa lights in Texas. In 1997, people saw 3 flying lights in the night sky in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, get some rest and proceed to the next investigation. Hey, ever heard of a fire rainbow? Yeah, me neither. How about a circumhorizontal arc? Didn't think so, but just so you know, they're one and the same thing. At first glance, it looks like a painting, or like a rainbow-colored splash in the sky. Despite the name, they have nothing in common with either fire or rain. This phenomenon happens on rare occasions when the sun shines through a particular type of ice cloud formation. The rainbow halos are just as unique. Again, a specific type of ice crystals in clouds needs to be present for the surface of the Earth to bend light from the sun into a perfect ring. The same thing can happen with moonlight. The only difference will be that moon halos are usually white and sun halos can be rainbow-colored. When visiting regions with high altitudes, you may be one of the lucky people to stumble upon penitentes. They're basically naturally formed ice spikes. For them to be formed, they need a really cold and elevated environment where the air is dry. The sunlight turns ice directly into vapor rather than melting it into water. And that's why these blades of snow and ice start to pop up on the surface of the Earth. As cute as they may be, they can end up as tall as 15 feet. Now, what happens when small individual droplets of lava meet the wind? Pele's hair, basically. Let me explain. The word Pele comes from an ancient Hawaiian symbol for volcanoes. Whenever the wind picks up little drops of lava, it stretches them into hair-like strands, similar to the process of glass wire creation. These delicate strands can stretch as far as 6 feet. On rare occasions, it can rain without any clouds. But does it really? Let's look at the science behind this rare phenomenon. It's sometimes called a sun shower, just because it looks like the rain is falling straight from the sun. Let's be clear though, there is no way rain can ever come down directly from a star. Rain clouds are at a bit of a distance from that specific location. With sun rays being angled, the clouds become out of sight. Add a little wind to blow the rain in your direction and ta-da! You get sun showers. Located in Bolivia is a place called Salar de Uyuni. It's the largest salt flat in the world. It's also the home of half of the world's lithium, which is a crucial component for making batteries. But what else is so special about this place? Well, whenever the rain season comes, it turns this piece of flat land into a perfectly reflective mirror lake. What comes to your mind when you hear about the Blood Falls? A horror movie? Well, they are merely a series of waterfalls located in one of the driest regions of Antarctica. They emerge from an underground lake filled with a special kind of bacteria. These little organisms use sulfates as fuel instead of sugars, which makes them very intriguing for scientists. The water contained in this lake is so full of iron that it basically just rusts when it meets the air. Hence, the reddish color of the waterfall, which also gives it its trademark name. Okay, we all know the song, but it's not really made up. There is actually such a thing called a desert rose. It's not a plant though, but a unique form of the mineral gypsum. It develops in dry sandy places that can occasionally flood. This constant switching between a wet and dry environment lets the gypsum crystals emerge between grains of sand, trapping them and forming a rose-like shape. Ever heard of the Eye of Sahara? Scientists are still trying to figure out how it was formed. You can only see it if you fly above it, but it's basically a naturally formed dome that dates back to approximately 100 million years ago. And no, I wasn't around then. It has a rough diameter of 25 miles and consists of a bunch of concentric rings. The biggest one, or the central area, measures about 19 miles in diameter. Astronauts were some of the first people to notice it, and it's been studied ever since. In fact, even to this day, when landing in Florida, they know they're almost home when they see the Eye of Sahara. One of the most beautifully colored trees in the world is located in the Philippines and Indonesia. It's called the rainbow eucalyptus. It got its name because of its bark that switches colors and peels away as the tree ages. The bright green bark is the youngest, as it contains a substance called chlorophyll, usually found in leaves. It then switches to purple and then to the color red. And finally, it turns brown as it grows and loses the chlorophyll. Now, don't be tricked into thinking that's a whole forest. It's one single tree. And no, it's not some sort of optical illusion either. Let me explain. Underneath that soil, there is a complex network of roots that connects around 47,000 tree-like shapes you see above the ground. It's called the quaking aspen. Some of these trees are among the oldest and largest organisms in the world. Now, here's a good destination for all travelers, or maybe not so good after all. The most lightning-stricken area in the world, according to recent data released by NASA, is Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela. Out of all the days in a year, 300 of them feature thunderstorms in this location. What makes this area so unique, though, that storms happen so often? Well, it's because where cool mountain air meets the warm, moist breeze and generates electricity over the lake. The Eternal Flame Falls are located in upstate New York, near the Canadian border. In this region, there is a tiny waterfall with a big secret, a spark about 8 inches tall. Turns out there's a natural gas seep that provides fuel to the flame behind the waterfall. The waterfall provides enough coverage so that it stays lit pretty much every time. Hikers do enjoy to relight it if they see that it's been blown out. This phenomenon is actually quite common, but this one gained more popularity because it is younger than most. And it looks very good in pictures, let's be honest. I've heard of yellow sand, white sand, and even black sand here or there. But I've never heard of green beaches until now. Papacolia, also known as Green Sand Beach, is located in Hawaii and is one of the few beaches in the world that features green sand. The unique coloring comes from olivine rock that was formed when a nearby volcano erupted. Actually, in Hawaii, all the volcanoes are nearby. Move over green sands because some of the other beaches around the world can even glow at night, and it's completely natural. The culprit? A little thing called photoplankton, or microalgae as they're sometimes called. They're basically little plants that contain chlorophyll and need sunlight in order to live and grow. Most photoplankton kinds are able to float in the upper part of the ocean, where the sunlight can still reach them beneath the water. When the photoplankton gets agitated by the movement of waves and currents, they emit light, which looks like some glow during the night. These special microorganisms are found on beaches in a lot of places around the world, such as the Maldives, Puerto Rico, and the Everglades. At the base of a mountain located just outside of Afton, Wyoming, is a little river called the Intermittent Spring. There are only 3 of this kind in the whole world, but what makes this little string of water so mysterious? Well, the fact that it starts and stops every few minutes. Scientists have yet to pinpoint precisely why this happens. They speculate that it's basically just a siphon effect that happens deep within the ground that causes the river to just start and stop so often. Should you ever be interested in checking it out, be sure to do so in the late summer, as that's when the intermittent spring is most active. Do you see the irony here? You can only see the spring in the summer? Okay. You're hiking in the wilderness, looking for a safe spot to set up camp. All you can hear are leaves and branches crackling under your footsteps. Some squirrels are running up a tree over there, but suddenly, something unexpected happens. You notice something weird in the distance in between the trees. It kind of looks like a concrete structure of some kind. Weird. At this point, you're at least 20 miles deep into the woods, and there are no nearby towns or villages, as far as you know. So you decide to go off the trail with your friends to get a closer look. But as you get nearer, you realize that it's leading to nowhere. What's it doing here in the middle of literally nowhere? And it doesn't even lead to anything. You put on your Sherlock Holmes cap and investigate. So, maybe there used to be an old house or mansion here that collapsed over the years, and the only thing left is a staircase? But, weirdly enough, after circling the bizarre structure, you realize there's no trace of any ruins or even foundations. It's like someone just sliced a staircase off their house, cake style, and plopped it here for no reason. Okay? You and your friends aren't really into getting a whole lot closer. Something feels wrong. The longer you look at this weird structure, the more you feel a super creepy presence. Something tells you you should probably leave the area as fast as possible. As weird as this sounds, discoveries of random staircases, illogically found in the woods, are surprisingly common. Some are made of wood, others of brick or stone. Some look ancient, while others look like they were finished yesterday. The one thing they all have in common, they all lead to absolutely nowhere, and they're all found in super mysterious locations. One of the most famous ones is in Chesterfield, New Hampshire. A long, medieval-looking staircase made of stones with Roman arches in the middle of the woods. It's believed to have been part of Madame Antoinette Sherry's castle. She was a big singer back in Paris. The castle dates back about 100 years, and it was later discovered again in 1962. This time, there was nothing but a staircase. Another mysterious ancient staircase dates back to 9,000 years ago. It's in a forest in Italy. It looks like a series of stairs that lead to a tiny platform at the top. Now, why go through all the trouble of building the thing if it leads to nowhere? Well, some scientists think it could have been some sort of ritual tower, but your guess is as good as theirs. There's an anomaly in the Indian Ocean known as the Indian Ocean Geoid Low, or IOGL. It produces the largest distorting natural gravitational force in the world. Heavy mineral deposits, many deep-sea trenches, and magma reservoirs disturb the magnetic field in this area. Earth's gravity changes in different places around the planet. It allows researchers to look for patterns and figure out what's happening beneath the surface. Higher gravity fields usually mean denser materials below, and vice versa. Some scientists believe that the anomaly might be a dent in the planet's mantle that is working its way up to the crust. The Niihau Island actually rejects the fruits of today's advancements. There are no cars in sight since the locals get around on foot or by bicycles. No wonder their legs have great definition. They thrive without running water, internet, or shops. The only school on the entire island is powered by solar energy with a backup generator. And what's awesome is that it's the only school in the state that's powered by the sun. Being a resident of the island, the local explains some ground rules the permanent residents must abide by. If they do break these rules, they can be evicted. Now, not far from Bangkok, in northeastern Thailand, there's a 75-million-year-old rock formation. These rocks look like three whales swimming together. The beautiful design created by nature became known as Three Whales Rock. Millions of years ago, this area was just a desert, but the land was changing. Gradually, sandstone got pulled apart by the movements of tectonic plates and erosion. That's how these spectacular formations were created. If you decide to explore the system of trails around Three Whales Rock, you'll find waterfalls and an abundance of fauna and flora there. Located on Gamal and Gaiden peninsulas, these expansive pit holes were discovered in 2014. They seem to be still changing and evolving. The pits grow wider, and people find them more often. Of course, there's no shortage of theories about how they appeared. Suggestions range from meteorite impacts to the activity of other civilizations. But the most common explanation is that methane gas reacted to water molecules after the planet's permafrost started to melt. This resulted in bubbles of methane bursting through the ice. The craters could be thousands of years old, but nobody knows for sure. You're driving to the state of New Mexico, to the small town of Taos. 2% of the locals hear a strange buzzing in the air every day. Some residents believe the sound is somehow connected with technologies used by guests from other galaxies. Also, there is a theory that something sinister lives in the town. They say Taos is cursed. An evil spirit or a phantom punishes people for something their ancestors did in the past. Scientists still can't explain the nature of this sound. Another theory says it's caused by unusual acoustics of the location, while others think the buzzing is a hallucination. Some can hear it because everybody talks about something, and our minds create an illusion of the sound that doesn't really exist. The sound isn't the same for everyone either. For some, it's a low hum. For others, it's more of a buzzing sound. But this is not the only place where you can hear the strange noises. It's called the hum, and people worldwide claim to have heard it. Some dwellers of a small village in Scotland describe it as a low, thick hum, while some residents of Florida heard a similar sound too. It's not exactly known where this phenomenon appeared, but the first time the media started talking about it was in the 1970s in England. Also, there are written records of a mysterious buzzing dating back almost 200 years. According to some estimates, only about 2% of people on the planet can hear the hum. Perhaps their ears pick up some low-frequency waves, or the reason is something else entirely. Maybe, just maybe, they hear humming because the person doing it doesn't know the words to the song. Yeah, that joke is also 200 years old. A volcano in Indonesia spews bright blue lava and produces electric blue and purple flames. This phenomenon occurs because the volcano has some of the highest levels of sulfur in the world. You can also know you're near it by its foul stench. But I digress. And when sulfuric gases interact with scorching hot air and get lit by the molten lava, they turn blue. You can also find the world's largest acid lake inside this crater. Yup, it's a real stinker. Underwater rivers and lakes are called brine pools for a reason. High salinity makes the water in them denser than the seawater around. That's why it sinks to the bottom, forming rivers and lakes. Those have waves of their own, and these waves can sometimes lap up against the shorelines. If you went down there in a submarine, it would easily float on the surface of a brine pool. But without a submarine, swimming in such a lake would be too risky. They contain too much toxic methane and hydrogen sulfide. Yeah, I'd pass on that too. But hey, be my guest. Cave of Crystals in Mexico is home to the world's most unique crystal formations. Thanks to super rare conditions in the cave, crystals there grow to unbelievable sizes. The air inside is incredibly humid. The water contains tons of minerals that boost the growth of the milky white giants. Some of them are longer than telephone poles. Cylindrical snow donuts occur when a wind gust starts to roll some snow across a snowy area, as if making a snowball. If it was a real thing, it would eventually become too heavy for the wind to move. But a snow donut's center is hollowed out. This happens because its inner layer is too thin and is blown away when the donut is formed. This makes the thing lighter than a snowball. That's also why it rolls further. Unfortunately, snow donuts are rare because they need very precise conditions to appear. The Danakil Depression in Ethiopia is probably one of the most bizarre-looking places you'll ever see. It's dotted with neon-colored hot springs, lava pools, and vast salt flats. You've got to be especially careful there. Toxic gases are swirling over hydrothermal fields, and many pools are super acidic. So, don't go swimming. Until at least 30 minutes after lunch. Just kidding. And finally, there's nothing mysterious about 28,000 rubber ducks found in the sea in 1992. That's when a ship transporting bath toys got lost in the ocean while traveling from Hong Kong to the U.S. Some of these ducks are still floating in the ocean several decades later. They've been spotted in South America, Alaska, Hawaii, and even Australia. And they make bath time lots of fun. Ooh, rubber ducky. You're in the Atacama Desert in northern Chile, one of the driest places on Earth. But this desert has a beautiful secret. Every 3 to 5 years, flowers pop up out of nowhere. It's so famous, it's also called the flowering desert. Seeds lie around in the ground just waiting for some rain. When the desert gets enough water, about 200 types of flowers sprout up. The yellow sands of the Atacama turn purple, white, green, and even pink. Another mystical phenomenon that can be seen in the desert is called a sand waterfall. When the wind brings a lot of sand to the edge of the canyon, it begins to fall down. Now amplify this effect 100 times and you get a sand waterfall in Saudi Arabia. It really is like Niagara Falls, only there's not a drop of water. The locals say this phenomenon warns of an impending sandstorm. Fairy rings, also known as elf rings or pixie rings, are mysterious circles of mushrooms that appear in grasslands and forested areas. There's a lot of debate about why these fairy rings form a nearly perfect circle. Some superstitions claim that fairy dances would burn the ground, causing mushrooms to rapidly grow. In southern India, between July and September 2001, people witnessed one of the strangest weather phenomena in recorded history. The rain was red. What many would have thought to be a typical rainstorm left them shocked. The color was bright enough to stain clothes. There were other colors too, such as green, yellow, brown, and even black. In the middle of a monsoon, red rain started to fall, and so did periodically for several weeks. Researchers have found this unusual rain is stained either by dust or algae, so don't try to catch any on your tongue. Scientists aren't entirely sure how the algae got all the way up there. This does make events like this a little unsettling. Now, people who live in rural central Norway over the Hessdalen Valley can often witness floating lights of white, yellow, and red cross the sky. The lights appear both at day and night, and once back in the 80s, the 1980s, they were spotted 15 to 20 times in a single week. The Hessdalen lights can last just a few seconds, but sometimes they can last more than an hour. The lights move, seeming to float or even sway around. Some scientists believe that the reason for these lights is due to ionized iron dust. Others say it's a combination that includes sodium, oxygen, and hydrogen. Many people claim they're just misidentified aircrafts. Norway! Snow donuts are one of the rarest meteorological sights to see, with perfect weather conditions needed just to create them. Found in any snow-covered mountain area, like the Rocky Mountains, the wind, temperature, snow, ice, and moisture all have to work together for us to see these phenomenal rings. A thin layer of wet snow on the ground. Under that layer, ice or powdered snow. Then, a strong enough breeze to roll the donut down a hill, just like a snowball. Once it stops rolling, it can be the size of a baseball or as large as a car tire. It all depends on how strong the wind is. A newly formed snow donut won't stay around for very long, so hurry up with that camera and watch your head. Can you believe there's another place on Earth with its own ecosystem and atmosphere, similar to another planet? Well, start believing. Movil Cave, located in southeastern Romania, remained closed in complete darkness for a whopping 5.5 million years. It wasn't until workers discovered the cave, when they were looking for a place to build, that anyone learned about it. Scientists carved out an opening to the cave and found that a completely sustained ecosystem was thriving inside. As a pathway was carved through the rock past numerous tunnels, scientists found a lake of sulfuric water that stank like rotten eggs. The air was filled with hydrogen sulfide and had 100 times more carbon dioxide than Earth's atmosphere contains. Needless to say, this air is completely toxic. What's even crazier is that a whole ecosystem has been existing in this cave, with 33 species that can't be found anywhere else on Earth. This cave gives us a glimpse of what could possibly exist on other planets with completely different atmospheres. How it managed to exist on Earth all this time without anyone knowing is rather unbelievable, isn't it? Now, check these trees out. They're called Indian rubber trees. Their strong roots grow not underground, but on the surface. With the help of special frames and fasteners, people have learned to control how these roots grow. Let's say a tree is next to a small pit. You need to make a bridge from one end of this pit to the other. You direct the growing tree roots in the needed direction. Over time, the roots penetrate the ground and strengthen under endless downpours. It takes about 15 years to create one bridge. Here's another amazing tree called the Tree of Life. It grows in Bahrain's desert. The tree has been standing on top of this sandy hill for more than 400 years, surrounded by miles of sand. It's extremely hot here, and there's no moisture. But despite this, the tree has green leaves, and it continues to grow. So far, scientists haven't figured out yet how the tree gets moisture and nutrients. There are only places with oil deposits around. Locals think the tree is sacred. After all, it demonstrates the magic of life and the power of nature. Some experts are sure it's all about the roots. They go so deep that they can reach underground sources of water. So, there you are. You've been driving for hours through the night. You didn't have any chance to sleep, so your mind is hanging by a thread. You stop the car and go out to stretch your limbs. And then you look up into the sky and see a beautiful sunrise. Whoa, wait. There are 3 suns in the sky. You rub your eyes, but nope, there's still 3 bright stars in the sky. No, our home star hasn't been torn into 3 pieces, nor has it been visited by 2 other stars. This is called a sundog. It occurs mostly during severe frosts. Small ice crystals in the sky bend the light. As a result, you may see 3 bright spots in the sky instead of just 1. This phenomenon is officially called a halo. Usually it's just a circle around the sun. You can even see a halo at night, too. Just look at a street lamp and you'll see a bright circle around it. Sometimes, a halo can take on a fancier shape. If there's a lot of ice in the air, the light is warped even more. Just like in a room with a dozen mirrors, then the halo can take on the shape of a human eye. Because of this phenomenon, a false dawn can also occur. While you're looking at the horizon, the dawn begins and the edge of the sun appears. A little bit more and wait, the sun starts to just dissolve in the sky. After a few moments, it's dark again. And only a minute later, the real sun shows its face. It was the same light curvature effect you saw before with the three suns. Only now, the light is curved vertically, not horizontally. And instead of the real sun, its reflection in ice crystals in the sky appeared. But the sunrise with three stars on the horizon is actually real. Not on Earth, though, but 340 light-years away. There's a star system at the center of which lurks a star almost twice the size of the Sun. And there are two smaller stars orbiting around this giant. This strange world has a planet, too. Sunsets and dawns there really happen with three stars. If you brought your significant other to a park bench to watch a sunset here, your date would go just fine, whatever that means. And since we're talking about the most baffling natural phenomena, it would be a crime not to mention snow in a desert. Yep, in the winter of 2018, the inhabitants of the Sahara Desert, one of the driest and hottest places on this planet, woke up to discover a thick blanket of snow covering the sand. In some places, the layer of snow enveloping the dunes reached a staggering 15 inches. Meteorologists, however, had an explanation for this exciting phenomenon. They stated that cold pools of air, combined with the precipitation from the most recent storm, resulted in a snowfall instead of rain. So, what do you do in that case? Build snow camels? One hump or two.
You're flying above Earth on the International Space Station at an altitude of 250 miles. You cast a glance out the porthole, and your eyes widen in surprise. There's some kind of bright blue flash just above nighttime Europe. It's like there was an explosion of some strange substance there. Such a strange luminous event was spotted by a French astronaut from aboard the ISS. And it wasn't an explosion at all. It was lightning, and was directed upwards. Until recently, this phenomenon was a kind of fairy tale among pilots. Scientists had heard their stories about lightning striking upward, and about red and blue flashes at high altitudes too. But there was no definitive proof of the existence of these luminous events. But they do exist, and are called sprites, elves, trolls, and ghosts. So how does ordinary lightning work? Masses of moist air in a cloud rub against each other and create static electricity. It would be almost the same if you danced in a wool sweater. It becomes charged with static electricity. And if you touch a metal doorknob, there's a discharge between your fingers and the door. There's your lightning. So a thundercloud builds up a strong negative charge. Sooner or later, a leader is born in the cloud. It's a bright thermo-ionized channel, or more simply, lightning. The leader moves toward the ground in steps of a few tens of feet, and it can accelerate to an average speed of 200,000 miles per hour. At that speed, you could make a trip around the Earth in just 7 minutes. But negative particles attract positive particles, and particles with opposite charges will tend to connect and compensate for each other. So, simultaneously with the negatively charged leader, the positive charge from the Earth begins its upward journey. The electric charge from the Earth connects with the negatively charged leader in one channel. This is when the brightest and loudest discharge happens. We call it lightning. It's this discharge that you hear as thunder. The main lightning doesn't strike from top to bottom, but from bottom to top. Yep, that is, the lightning is actually directed upward. It's as if the Earth is striking back at the thundercloud. And that charge can reach up to 30,000 amps. Your average wall outlet only has about 15 amps. And the record for the length of lightning is about 440 miles. That's more than the width of the state of Kansas. Meteorologists recorded such lightning in Brazil. It was a discharge between giant thunderclouds. And the longest lightning strike was recorded in Argentina. A single lightning strike there lasted 16.3 seconds. By comparison, you blink at 0.1 seconds. So we saw a regular lightning strike. The positive particles from the ground neutralize the negative particles in the cloud. But the cloud is still full of positively charged particles. They accumulate and wait for their time to create lightning. Once the charge reaches a critical point, the lightning cloud throws that charge dozens of miles upward. This is called a blue jet. It's exactly the same luminous event seen by a French astronaut aboard the International Space Station. The blue jets look like someone turned on a gas burner pointing upward. The positively charged blue jets neutralize at high altitudes with negatively charged particles, but people on the ground cannot observe blue jets. Thunderclouds obstruct the view, but they can be seen from an airplane. That's why, for a long time, commercial airline pilots were the only witnesses to this phenomenon. On board the ISS is also a great place to observe jets, as they are born at the very top of thick clouds and shoot dozens of miles upwards. But if you climb even higher, you can see this kind of bizarre lightning. It's a sprite. It looks more like a jellyfish, a cloud of red charge at the top and a bunch of little tentacles coming down. Now, normal lightning can have a temperature of about 54,000 degrees Fahrenheit, but you can touch a sprite with your hands. Unless, of course, you're afraid of a powerful electrical discharge. The sprite has about the same temperature as an energy-saving light bulb. All because sprites are born in the mesosphere. This is the layer of our atmosphere that starts at about 31 miles high. And it's the coldest place on our planet. On the ground level, where we live, the air is much denser. There are just more air molecules. They absorb heat from the sun's rays, and we feel comfortable. But the higher up we go, the fewer air molecules there are. At the altitude at which commercial airline planes fly, there's no longer enough air to accumulate that heat. You wouldn't even be able to breathe up there. That's why every airplane has oxygen masks for emergencies, and the temperature here is even colder than at the South Pole. In the mesosphere, there's almost no air, and the temperature here can be around negative 202 degrees Fahrenheit. And although the temperature of the lightning itself is high, in general, it's like if you poured a glass of boiling water into a huge barrel of cold water. The temperature won't change much. Sprites can only appear when paired with thunderclouds below. As a discharge occurs in a cloud, a sprite appears in the mesosphere. It tries to equalize the amount of charge in the atmosphere. So it's like these red flashes of lightning are trying to reach down to the thunderstorm. And a sprite itself can be as wide as the state of Massachusetts. And then there's a ghost. It can appear for the tiniest fraction of a second right after the sprite. It's a faint green glow, like an aurora. They were first discovered in 2014, and official confirmation by the scientific community only appeared in 2019. They're still poorly understood, but there's a hypothesis that ghosts have something in common with auroras. At least their color is green, and it may arise due to excited oxygen atoms. Sometimes we can spot trolls along with sprites. They look like pillars that support a sprite. It's a red glow at the end of the sprite's tentacles. The next moment, the troll releases a red streak down from itself. And if we climb even higher, we can see the elves. They only appear for 1 millisecond. It's a dim, flat glow that appears during thunderstorms in the ionosphere at an altitude of about 62 miles above sea level. Elves can be as wide as the distance between New York and Washington, D.C. Elves were first discovered during space shuttle flights in 1990. And these are pixies. They weren't discovered until 2000. Scientists observed bright, brief, luminous events for 20 minutes. Although they look like lightning striking inside a cloud, they have nothing to do with them. Pixies are smaller than 100 meters, which is about 330 feet. We shouldn't forget that any lightning is extremely dangerous for humans, and if you're caught in a severe thunderstorm, you need to leave its epicenter immediately. You can determine how far you are from the epicenter easily. The speed of light is much faster than the speed of sound. So, when lightning strikes, it takes a couple of seconds until you hear the thunder. So, you need to measure that interval. Lightning! Now count the seconds. Every second of thunder delay after lightning is about 1,150 feet. That's the distance a wave of sound travels in 1 second. So if the thunder delay after a lightning strike is 5 seconds, you're about 1 mile from the lightning. You can also tell if there will be a thunderstorm by the smell. The air before a thunderstorm seems unusually fresh. This is because the air currents bring in ozone molecules from the upper atmosphere. The same ozone protects us from harmful ultraviolet rays and transfers heat from the sun to the atmosphere. What we use to breathe is the oxygen of 2 atoms. Add 1 more and you get ozone. ultraviolet light breaks down the two oxygen atoms and is absorbed by them. These broken atoms are then attached to the normal double oxygen atoms. When an ultraviolet beam strikes an ozone molecule, it knocks one oxygen atom out of the chain again. But ozone tends to regenerate, so the lost oxygen is reattached to other double atoms. But the ozone layer began getting damaged when humanity started emitting harmful gas into the atmosphere. Freon is to blame. It's the gas we were using in old refrigerators. The freon molecule contains harmful chlorine atoms. Ultraviolet rays knock this atom out of the molecule. Then that chlorine atom steals one oxygen atom from ozone, and we have a double oxygen molecule that can't regenerate and save us from the harmful ultraviolet rays. This causes a hole to appear in the ozone layer. The most famous ozone hole was over Antarctica, but when humanity banned the use of harmful chemicals, this hole began to recover. It's not that the hole will close completely, it will just return to the way it was before.
Uh-oh, a strong wind is blowing. Black clouds cover the sky. Thunder is rumbling and is pouring down with rain. A storm is coming, but you don't care. You're sitting in your apartment listening to music and typing something on your computer. You hear a thunderclap. Look out the window and see a heavy downpour, a tornado, and lightning flashes. You close all the windows and go back to the computer. And then, bam! It seems that lightning has struck near your house. Your laptop and all electrical appliances in the home go off. The light goes out. You get scared. At this moment, you hear a strange hissing sound. You see how, like a phantom, a round glowing ball of electricity flies into your house through a closed window. It penetrates your room, hovers in the air, waits for something, and then flies back through the walls. The lights turn on, and everything comes back to normal. You've just seen a real natural phenomenon called ball lightning, and you're fortunate to be alive after meeting it. This is a rare phenomenon. Ball lightning occurs during a thunderstorm in the form of a floating sphere. It can change color from blue to orange and yellow. It's the approximate size of a basketball, but can also be much more significant. This lightning makes a hissing sound and a pungent smell. Phew! The first records of ball lightning were made in 1638 in England. Then, a giant glowing ball flew into the church window. Since then, there have been a lot of evidence of how ball lightning got into houses and frightened people. In the 20th and 21st centuries, scientists actively investigated this phenomenon. They found out that half of the cases with ball lightning were just hallucinations caused by magnetic fields during a thunderstorm. But they couldn't wholly refute the fact of the existence of ball lightning. They agreed that this phenomenon existed, and once they even managed to record it. The phenomenon of ball lightning was caught in China. Researchers studied the behavior of thunderstorms in 2012 using video cameras and spectrometers. They saw an unusual lightning strike, after which the ball appeared. It flew horizontally about 33 feet and disappeared. The spectrometer showed that the ball consisted of silicon, iron, and calcium. If it's real, then what is its nature? There are several theories. Perhaps the ball lightning occurs as a result of a lightning strike on the ground. Oxygen and evaporated elements from the soil create a reaction in the form of a round clot of energy. This explains why the spectrometer in 2012 recorded the same calcium in the ball lightning as in the ground. Another theory says that glass can generate these balls. Atmospheric ions accumulate on the glass surface and create an electric field. Together with a lightning strike, this field turns into ball lightning. That's why there's so much evidence that the sphere flies into the building through the window. In 2016, scientists pointed out that a lightning strike on the ground created microwave radiation that can form into a plasma bubble. This floating electric plasma takes a round shape and hovers in the air for a few seconds. Earthquakes can cause ball lightning too. During ground tremors, flashes of light appear from the depths of the crust. It's like lightning that comes not from the sky, but from the ground. Some of these lights may look like floating blue spheres. In 2014, scientists studied earthquake lights and found that some rocks emit electrical discharges during seismic wave impacts. In 2006, researchers at a university in Tel Aviv created a laboratory to study ball lightning. They used microwave radiation to recreate a lightning-like electric charge. In 2018, Quantum physicists made a complex synthetic magnetic field similar to ball lightning. Physicists, chemists, meteorologists, and other scientists have conducted research and laboratory experiments many times to understand the nature of this phenomenon. But so far, no one has succeeded. Other glowing balls are less dangerous, but still mysterious. In clear weather, you can see strange glowing lights away from cities, somewhere in a swampy area. Previously, when there was no electricity, people noticed these lights. They thought someone needed help. What if some guy is stuck in the swamp and shines a kerosene lamp to get seen? People went to these lights to help, but fell into the swamp, and the light either flew away or disappeared. Some records speak of several lights at once. They moved quickly and changed their colors. Many believe that these were some kind of mystical creatures that lured people into traps. But over time, scientists managed to uncover the mystery of this phenomenon. Bioluminescent fungi and algae grow in swampy places. Sometimes they glow with blue light and create the illusion of glowing lights from a distance. Also, there's a lot of plant material in the swamps: leaves, grass, mud, clay, and tree branches. These substances decompose rapidly in humid conditions and release methane. As soon as methane contacts air, it ignites. The flame flies over the swamp in the form of a burning ball. Mysterious lights appear not only in swamps. People see them in deserts or mountainous areas. Sometimes it's headlights from cars. In other cases, it's the signal lights of an airplane. But in many cases, the nature of such lights remains unknown. And now, imagine a huge ball the size of a small city. It's like a dome, covers a large area, and protects it from tornadoes and storms. This phenomenon is called the Delco weather bubble and is located in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. That's how it all started. In 1996, one of the strongest snowstorms of the 20th century hit the U.S. East Coast. It was named the Blizzard of 1996. It covered almost all of Pennsylvania, but in the small town of Delaware County, Delco for short, the weather was good. The storm raged around but didn't touch the city. Since that year, the locals have believed that an abnormal weather bubble protects their houses. However, there's no scientific evidence of the existence of this bubble. After the blizzard of 1996, there were several more storms in the area, and forecasters claimed some storms would also cover Delco. But contrary to their forecasts, the weather there was excellent. Strangely, there is no meteorological evidence of this. One of the residents decided to investigate this phenomenon seriously. He followed the weather forecasts, looked at satellite photos, and saw how the black clouds diverged around the city. It rained heavily in the neighboring towns, but not Delco. This seems like convincing proof. And the question remains, should we believe the locals? There's one scientific explanation explaining the nature of this phenomenon. Storms may weaken here thanks to the sea air that accumulates in the Delco area. The street and the city's surrounding area are filled with this humid, cold air. It creates a sort of stabilization of the atmosphere, and when intense storms from the west collide with Delco's air, they lose a significant part of their strength. And it seems as if bad weather just bypasses the city. But there's another explanation, a psychological one. All the known information about the weather bubble came from the stories of residents. They see confirmation of this phenomenon and write about it on social media. Someone said that they'd seen a tornado pass by his house. Others claimed that the bubble had saved them from a downpour. People think that it didn't affect others if there was no trouble with their house. Imagine the TV says that a storm has started in your city. You look out of the window and see a clear sky, no wind and rain. It seems to you that the bubble has saved you again. Although behind you, a few hundred feet from your backyard, a tornado is raging and tearing the roofs off of buildings. But you didn't see it and wrote to the social network that Delco has saved your city again. In this sense, the weather bubble becomes more like a virtual one, thanks to the people who write about it.
Bright, colorful flashes of pink and green light up the sky. You're watching it from your backyard in Pennsylvania. That's not something you're used to, but it's very likely to happen more often in the near future as the northern lights are shifting south. Northern lights, or auroras, appear as a result of solar storms. The sun is a huge ball of molten gases that are constantly moving, so such storms aren't rare. Our star produces a huge amount of energy that goes our way. It travels as electrical charges at the speed of about 3 million miles per hour, no big deal. When all those tiny particles from the sun reach Earth's atmosphere, they give some of the energy to atoms and molecules in its upper layer. The atoms and molecules can't hold it and give it off as light. You can see it as spectacular auroras around the magnetic poles of the northern and southern hemispheres. If you were watching them from space, they'd look like large ovals. The brightness, colors, and shapes auroras take depend on the altitude where the lights are formed and what particles take part in the process. In the northern hemisphere, locations like Alaska, Canada, and much of Scandinavia normally get to see the brightest lights. The biggest solar storm ever was recorded in 1859, and it was so powerful that the northern lights were spotted in Cuba and Honolulu, and southern lights were seen as far up as Santiago, Chile. In latitudes like that of New York, people were able to read newspapers in the dark under those northern lights alone. If something similar happened today, it would have caused $1 to $2 trillion in damage. With solar activity and pressure from the solar winds increasing, the aurora belt's borders are currently shifting south. Solar activity goes in cycles, each of them 11 years long. We're now in solar cycle 25, which started in December 2019, and will reach its maximum strength between November 2024 and March 2026. So, geomagnetic storms will become stronger and probably even reach G5 levels. Those levels are their strength ratings. For you to see the northern lights south of the Great Lakes, a storm must be rated at least G3. G5 storms will be able to produce auroras that will even reach Florida. In case you don't want to wait for the sun activity to peak in 2025, head north if you're in the northern hemisphere, or south if you're in the southern hemisphere. Auroras down there are known as the southern lights, or aurora australis. It doesn't have to be cold for you to see the northern lights, it just has to be dark. Auroras are active throughout the year. You can't see them from April to August in the northernmost parts of the world because it's light 24/7. It's also important that there isn't any precipitation or clouds in the sky. Those will block your view. Light pollution won't help either, so move away from any cities. Try to get to an elevation to maximize your chances of spotting the lights. They can appear in a whole variety of colors, including white-gray. The green-yellow part you're most likely to imagine while thinking of the lights is just the easiest to spot with an unaided human eye. Sometimes you might not see the lights at all, but your camera will still catch them. They might seem dangerously close to Earth, but the closest the northern lights ever get to us is 50 miles. For comparison, planes normally fly at around 6 miles above the surface, and that already seems like a lot. The distance from Earth defines the color of the auroras. When atoms giving us this spectacular show collide closer to Earth, you can see blues and violets in the sky. Green and red auroras are born further away from our planet. Earth isn't the only planet to have northern lights. Jupiter and Saturn both have strong magnetic fields, and scientists spotted auroras up there using the Hubble Space Telescope and the Cassini and Galileo spacecraft. It looks like Saturn's auroras are also caused by solar winds, but it's not so clear about Jupiter. Despite what you can often see online, the northern lights aren't going to disappear altogether. Once the sun passes its activity peak and becomes less active, both the northern and the southern lights will happen less frequently, but will still be gorgeous. Another beautiful, rare phenomenon is called the green flash. It happens shortly after sunset or before sunrise when the sun is almost entirely below the horizon, and the Earth's atmosphere bends and scatters light from it. People mostly spot it over the ocean. It can also be yellow, blue, or purple. About once a year, you can spot a rare firenado in the US. Fire tornadoes start when a strong wind picks up heat from a fire. They are made of a flame or ash. They're different from regular tornadoes because they don't start from cyclones. Firenadoes are about as tall as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Unlike firenadoes, fire rainbows or rainbow clouds don't cause any damage at all as they don't have anything to do with fire. You can only see them when the sun is very high in the sky and its light is passing through ice clouds, so they're pretty rare. The rainbow halos are just as unique. Again, it takes a specific type of ice crystals in the clouds of the surface of the Earth to bend light from the sun into a perfect ring. The same thing can happen with moonlight. The only difference will be that the moon halos are usually white and sun halos can be rainbow colored. A white rainbow is another rare illusion, this time created by fog and water. Like a usual rainbow, it's formed when light is shining through droplets of water. It loses color because fog droplets are hundreds of times smaller than those of rain. A white rainbow is sometimes mistaken for a moonbow. You can spot this one at nighttime as the moon illuminates it. That's why it's not so bright. If you ever see an upside-down rainbow in the sky, that's a circumzenithal arc. It's not really a rainbow, but a kind of halo like those around the sun or the moon. This optical phenomenon is caused by ice crystals in the upper atmosphere. You have the best chance to see a circumzenithal arc when the sun is rather low in the sky. It happens super rarely, but it can rain without a single cloud in the sky. It's sometimes called a sun shower because it looks like the rain is falling straight from the sun. In reality, rain clouds are at a distance from that specific location. With sun rays being angled, the clouds become out of sight. Then, it takes just a little wind to blow the rain in your direction. If you ever travel to regions with high altitudes, you might see something called penitentes. Those ice spikes form only in a really cold and elevated environment where the air is dry. The sunlight turns ice directly into vapor instead of melting it into water. That's why these blades of snow and ice up to 15 feet tall start to pop up on the surface of the Earth. One of the rarest types of clouds is lenticular clouds that look like giant mountain hats. They're formed when moist air travels over a mountain or a mountain range and gets into an area of turbulence. Volcanoes can produce bolts of lightning. They're formed in columns of volcanic ash through friction and static electricity to connect the positively and negatively charged particles. To understand how it works, you can rub a balloon across your hair or your feet across a carpet and then touch a metal doorknob. Once a year, just for a few moments, a waterfall in Yosemite turns into a fireball. In winter and early spring, two streams flow down El Capitan Mountain. In perfect conditions in February, when the sun is hiding behind the horizon, it gets into the right position to reflect off the wall and color the water into fiery orange. Guess the riddle. It's moving at 5 miles per second. It makes one circle around Earth every 90 minutes. Within 24 hours, it sees 16 sunrises and sunsets. It also observes many strange phenomena, like gigantic, bizarre symbols written in a desert. You probably already know what it is. The International Space Station. There are a lot of things we don't notice here on Earth, but if we step back, we'll see some pretty strange stuff happening on the planet. Most often, astronauts notice these mysterious things, and recently, they've seen weird patterns in a deserted area of Tunis. They aren't like fake crop circles that were popular in the early 2000s. You may think these strange hieroglyphs have an unearthly origin. They're quite large. That's how astronauts could see them from space. But why doesn't anyone talk about them on Earth? Do Tunisians know what's going on there? In many movies and in real life, secret organizations hide information about some kind of extraterrestrial things. You might have also noticed that most videos about strange phenomena taken by eyewitnesses have terrible quality, as if the operator is always shooting on an old VHS camera. But in the case of the ISS, everything is different. The mysterious symbols were captured on a 4K camera mounted on board the ISS. And the owner of this camera is Sen Corporation Limited, which provides video streaming from space to individuals and businesses. And do you know what the principle of this company is? They strive to make space data publicly available and useful. Thanks to the high quality of the video and open access, the mystery of extraterrestrial technology has been solved. Do you know what it is? Think for yourself and see other strange phenomena that astronauts have observed. Perhaps the following riddles will lead you to the right answer, but if you fail, you will get the answer at the end of the video. Meet NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic. He likes to take pictures from the ISS and post them on the internet. After 6 months of working in Earth's orbit, he shared a mysterious phenomenon with us. You can see most of Asia from an altitude of about 250 miles. There are flashes of lightning, city lights, and a strange red glow. Dominic admitted that he wasn't sure about its origin. Considering the glow is so visible from such a long distance, this must be something big. Try to guess. Here's a clue. Perhaps squids are guilty of this strange visual effect. But no, it's not a giant glowing kraken. You'll find the answer at the end. The following phenomenon occurred not on Earth, but above it. Take a look at this golden red glow in the atmosphere. The ISS took this photo while flying over the Pacific Ocean, northeast of Papua New Guinea. If you think it's pulverized gold, then you're wrong. This is probably the most difficult puzzle in this video. Do you know anything about chemistry, physics, and astronomy? If not, then you're unlikely to answer this riddle. Wait, you'll get the answer soon. This picture was taken by an ISS astronaut during a flyby over Southeast Asia in 2021. 2 shimmering blue balls of light appeared in the dark and slightly ominous atmosphere of Earth. One was flickering over the Gulf of Thailand, and the other was glowing near the South China Sea. The difficulty in solving this phenomenon lies in the fact that not one, but 2 scientific phenomena are taking place here. Lightning, reflection of moonlight from ice particles, spaceships from another planet? What do you think it is? Do you want to get an answer? Wait a bit. So the first mystery is those strange hieroglyphs in the desert. Do you have any ideas? I must warn you though, the truth about this phenomenon may disappoint you a little. These are not symbols made by an extraterrestrial civilization. These are agricultural patterns. Someone just plowed the land or planted vegetables. It doesn't seem strange from below, but from above, it looks like an unknown language or a cipher. So, the next mystery is the red light. Some internet users said it could have been an erupting volcano. Others suggested that commercial vessels emit a red light to catch squid. Fishers use this color to attract sea creatures. So maybe it was a hunt on the giant squid after all. And one user claimed that those red lights belonged to a giant fishing fleet. And its red light can be seen in the nighttime images taken by some satellites. It's time to deal with the most difficult mystery, the golden red glow. If you understand the atmosphere of our planet and know about the chemical interaction between the elements of the periodic table, then you've probably guessed what it is. If not, then here's a simple answer. A golden red glow appears as sunlight interacts with molecules and atoms in the Earth's atmosphere. Now let's take a closer look at this. Ultraviolet light falls on molecules such as oxygen, ozone, sodium, and nitrogen. Light stimulates these cells, meaning it charges them with energy during the day, causing them to separate and excite the electrons inside. Then, these charged particles collide with each other and release energy. As a result of this process, a mesmerizing glow appears. It's mostly oxygen that gives the red color to this glow. The golden light appears because of sodium particles. Scientists divide this phenomenon into 3 categories: day glow, twilight glow, and night glow. Depending on the illumination of the atmosphere by sunlight and the position of the observer, these lights have unique characteristics. Such a fascinating phenomenon not only shows the visual aesthetics of our planet, but also helps scientists better study the upper atmosphere. And finally, the answer to the 4th riddle. We have 2 blue lights. Both have different natures. Let's deal with the first one. The blue light over the Gulf of Thailand was caused by a thunderstorm. But it's not that simple. If you observe Earth from the ISS, you may not always see lightning flashes during thunderstorms because they're usually hidden by clouds. This time, the photographer from the ISS was lucky. There was a gap in the clouds. Lightning illuminated the surrounding walls of this cloud and produced this blue glowing ring. Do you know that a blue thunderstorm is not the most unusual phenomenon in the sky? Red lightning flashes can appear too. They're called sprites. They occur above clouds during an ordinary lightning strike and extend to a height of up to 10 miles. That's why it's hard for us to see them from the ground. Sprites can also extend upward along the trajectory of a narrow cone, like fans. And at this moment, they can glow with blue light. Another cool phenomenon is called elves. These are giant expanding flashes of light in the shape of a pancake. They can reach thousands of miles across and also appear during thunderstorms. Seeing these pancakes is pretty difficult because they exist for less than 1,000th of a second. But what about the second glow? Things get a little more complicated here. The reason for this blue flash is the moon. It seems to us that our satellite glows by itself at night, but it just reflects the sunlight that falls on it. The light from the moon passes through the atmosphere, and the magic happens. We see a blue sky during the day because the sun's rays get scattered in the atmosphere. It's as if they pass through special filters. The light reflected from the moon is also scattered, passes through these filters, and turns blue. But why don't we see this glow at night? Because it's too weak compared to the daytime glow of the sun. But from a certain angle and at a certain height, this blue moonlight can be seen. Astronauts from the ISS managed to catch this scattering. It's like turning the sky blue, only a smaller version. But why blue? Light consists of different colors, and each of them has its own wavelength. Blue has the shortest wavelength, so it's the easiest to scatter.
A 62-year-old man named Edwin Robinson was completely blind until a lightning bolt struck him. Yep. And for some logic-defying reason, the phenomenon that should have sent him straight to a coffin somehow made him see again. Wait, what? This whole thing started in 1971. Robinson, then a truck driver in Maine, was doing his job on a freezing cold day when suddenly he lost control of his truck. The vehicle jackknifed on an icy bridge. The impact was brutal, and Edwin suffered a severe brain injury. From that moment on, he couldn't see or hear anything. But life must go on, right? So he adapted. He learned Braille, started using a hearing aid, and did his best to adjust to his new normal. 9 years later, in June of 1980, something unbelievable happened. He was in his backyard calling for his pet chicken. Apparently, it followed him around like a dog. Anyway, he was walking around using his aluminum cane and then, bam! Out of nowhere, a lightning bolt hit him. He later described the sensation as feeling like someone cracked a whip over his head. He just fell forward, flat on the ground, and he thought it was the end for him. Thankfully, it wasn't. Somehow he managed to gather his strength, get up, and make his way back into the house. He laid down and took a 20-minute nap. And when he woke up, something felt different. He described it like his whole body was made of rubber, but in a good way. I mean, it's been years since he felt this good. He sat on the couch, opened his eyes, and then he saw. Yep, for the first time in years, he could see. And there it was, right in front of him, a plaque on the wall that one of his grandkids had made. What's even crazier is that his vision was so sharp he could read it. Nothing made sense, so he decided to see a doctor. His appointment was the very next day. After a 40-minute examination, the doctor confirmed it. He had regained vision in both eyes. And his hearing was fine too. Just like that, Edwin Robinson became a media sensation. Everybody wanted to interview the guy who had experienced a modern-day, unexplainable miracle. But not everyone was convinced. Medical professionals, including ophthalmologists and neurologists who had read about his case in the newspapers, were skeptical. According to them, it was simply not possible, physiologically speaking, to be blind from a brain injury for years and then, out of nowhere, get the vision back. It didn't make any sense to say that an electrical shock could somehow reawaken his optical nerves and restore his sight. That's why, for many people, the only logical explanation was that he had been faking his blindness all along and had, for whatever reason, suddenly decided he wanted to see again. We don't know if he was lying or not, but the truth is, no one has ever been able to fully explain what happened to Robinson that day. Now, statistically, the chances of getting struck by lightning in a year are less than 1 in a million. But if you ever do get struck, don't panic. Your chances of survival are pretty high. Statistics show that around 90% of lightning strike victims survive. And just like Robinson, they often end up with one heck of a story to tell. Take for example the case of Chef Meg Haworth. She was sitting with a friend on the wet sand near the waves at Venice Beach in Los Angeles. They noticed a storm in the distance, but it seemed far away, and the sky above them had only a few dark clouds, so they didn't move. But then, out of nowhere, the weather shifted dramatically. A violent lightning storm hit the area, and everything turned into chaos. People were hugging each other, crying and screaming, and before Haworth even knew what was happening, boom, she was struck. She said it felt like a heavy metal object had slammed into her head. Her muscles seized up from the electricity, especially around her neck and shoulders. Thankfully, she survived. And she experienced some strange consequences from the event. Not so much physical ones, but she swears she developed new abilities afterwards, as if her senses had become sharper. Everything around her looked more vivid. Colors were brighter, outlines were more defined, and she could feel things happening around her in a way she never had before. For instance, if a sprinkler turned on in a yard nearby, she could feel it like it was happening inside her body. If a helicopter flew overhead, it felt like it was flying through her. Meanwhile, Kimberly Crone from Forney, Texas, also claimed she developed some kind of superpower after being struck by lightning. In June of 2009, she was just casually standing in front of her kitchen sink, holding a pan. Then, out of nowhere, a storm erupted. She heard 2 loud booms, then a massive lightning came straight through the ceiling. The bolt bounced off the pan she was holding and hit her right in the chest. All she remembers is pain and the distinct smell of burning. She said it felt like her body was on fire as the current surged through her. Then she collapsed to her knees and crawled into the living room, where her 9-year-old son found her and called 911. Even years after the traumatic event, she still felt the pain. But not only that, she developed a unique ability. She could now sense when a storm was coming. So, what really happens to the human body when struck by lightning? Immediately after the strike, you're going to pass out. A lot of people think lightning strike victims end up looking fried, exactly like cartoon characters. Well, while your skin can suffer burns, the real frying happens on the inside. The list of complications is long. It includes muscle soreness, severe headaches, cardiac arrest, confusion, and dizziness. In the long term, the effects can be unpleasant. Victims often struggle with insomnia, memory problems, and mood swings. Many folks report feeling irritable and anxious, even years after the incident. Totally understandable. Another common side effect is the appearance of strange, fern-like lesions on the skin, known as Lichtenberg figures. These usually show up on the feet or legs and are caused by ruptured capillaries beneath the skin due to the intense electrical discharge. They often appear a few hours after the strike and tend to fade away within days. Now, if you never want to experience anything remotely like this in your life, there are a few precautions you can take. First, if you hear thunder, it means lightning is close enough to strike. So get inside fast and stay indoors for at least 30 minutes after the last sound of thunder. If you're caught outside during a storm, avoid open fields, hilltops, and tall objects like trees. These act as lightning magnets. If you cannot find shelter, crouch down in a ball-like position, tuck your head and cover your ears. This keeps you as low as possible with minimal contact to the ground. But whatever you do, never lie flat. Although it might feel safe, this position increases your chances of getting hit by ground currents. And finally, stay away from water. Whether it's a lake, a pool, or even a puddle, water is a fantastic conductor of electricity, and you do not want to test that firsthand. If you are inside when the storm hits, that's good news, but you still need to be cautious. Unplug electronics, as lightning can travel through electrical systems. Stay away from laptops, washers, dryers, and other appliances until the storm passes. Oh, and do not lean against concrete walls or floors, as some older homes can conduct electricity through small cracks. And don't stand near windows, because the storm's strong winds can break the glass and send objects flying into your house and into you. Bottom line, when thunder roars, go indoors. But even then, be careful. Well, here you are. You're getting into your submarine, feeling a bit anxious. You're going to descend hundreds of feet underwater to explore the ocean floor. So many things can go wrong. Technical issues, insane water pressure, dangerous marine monsters, mysterious eerie sounds. Wait, what? Eerie sounds so deep underwater? Yep, a strange humming noise is coming from the ocean depths. What makes it even creepier is that it only appears during dusk and dawn. This noise might act as a dinner bell, since it's likely to have a connection to massive groups of sea creatures moving up and down through the water to feed. But so far, it's just a theory. Using highly sensitive underwater microphones, researchers recorded a mysterious low-frequency hum at depths of 660 to 3,300 feet. The sound wasn't very loud, just 3 to 6 decibels above the usual ocean background noise. For comparison, when someone is whispering in a quiet library, the sound reaches 30 decibels. The underwater noise also had a puzzling or humming quality. The weirdest thing? Despite their efforts, the researchers couldn't pinpoint a single species responsible for the sound. The noise originates in a region known as the twilight zone of the ocean. This region is dark and doesn't have many nutrients, with no sunlight for photosynthesis. Life here relies on organic debris falling from above, such as deceased organisms or waste material. At the same time, while it may sound barren, the twilight zone is far from empty. A 2015 study estimated that up to 90% of the world's fish could live in this zone, including many undiscovered species. Now, back to the mysterious noise. The researchers believe the sound may be linked to the vertical migration of small marine creatures like fish, shrimp, and squid. These animals move upward toward the surface at sunset to feed on plankton and nutrients, using darkness to avoid predators. At sunrise, they return to the depths to hide. This migration, which is one of the largest animal movements on Earth, involves billions of organisms and occurs daily. Scientists suspect that the strange hum might occur during this migration, as a way for the creatures to communicate or coordinate their movements. It might also serve as a signal to indicate when it's safe for a group to go to the surface and feed. If some animals indeed use the hum to communicate, it could help us understand deep-sea life better. The Twilight Zone has always been considered a quiet environment, but such a discovery hints at complex social behaviors and interactions among its inhabitants. But it's not only the ocean that produces bizarre sounds. Earth is humming non-stop too. Unfortunately, you can't hear this soundtrack. This hum isn't from earthquakes. It's produced by subtle ongoing vibrations in the planet's crust. They're too faint for us to feel and can only be detectable with special equipment. Scientists have long known about this phenomenon called free oscillation and have recorded this persistent hum. Earthquakes are the most noticeable ground movements. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, Earth experiences about 500,000 earthquakes every year. Of those, only 100,000 are strong enough to be felt, and around 100 cause noticeable damage. But in the quieter moments between earthquakes, the planet is still constantly vibrating with smaller, unnoticeable movements. Unlike the sudden jolts of earthquakes, this hum is steady and uniform, and it's a byproduct of microseismic activity. Seismometers, tools used to record ground vibrations, can detect this sound anywhere on land. For years, researchers have been debating the origins of this hum. Some thought it came from ocean waves reaching deep into the seafloor. Others believed it was caused by colliding waves on the ocean's surface. By 2015, scientists had confirmed that both factors contributed to Earth's constant vibration. And although this hum has been recorded on land, now we also have much clearer, more detailed underwater recordings. To study the hum, researchers used spherical seismometers on the seafloor in the Indian Ocean near an island east of Madagascar. Between September 2012 and November 2013, They place 57 free-fall seismometers across a 772 square mile area. These devices are designed to sink into the ocean floor and record even the faintest vibrations. Over the course of the 11-month study, the team filtered out noise from ocean waves and seafloor currents. They got clear, consistent signals of Earth's hum, with peaks at frequencies between 2.9 and 4.5 MHz, far below the range of human hearing, which starts at 20 Hz. The discovery of Earth's hum from the ocean floor is more than just a scientific curiosity. It gives researchers a new way to study how energy moves through the planet's crust and mantle. In any case, the world around us is filled with weird sounds that sometimes remain unexplained. One of the most intriguing examples is the bloop, an incredibly loud underwater sound recorded in 1997 by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The sound lasted about a minute and began as a low rumble, which then increased in frequency. It was so loud that underwater microphones detected it across an astonishing 3,000 miles. Initially, some experts thought it was the call of a massive unknown sea creature. However, NOAA later determined that the source likely had been the calving of icebergs, when giant pieces of Antarctic glaciers had been breaking off and crashing into the sea. The sound, known as Julia, a strange cooing noise, could have been produced by an iceberg scraping along the ocean floor. Another sound, dubbed train, due to its resemblance to the sound of train wheels on a track, likely originated in Antarctica's Ross Sea. Then there is upsweep, a recurring seasonal scratchy noise detected in the Pacific Ocean since 1991. Despite years of research, its exact cause remains unclear. The underwater world also has bizarre sounds that can be described as choirs of fish. Scientists studying marine life off the coast of Port Hedland in Western Australia discovered that many fish species sing in synchronized choruses at dawn and dusk, much like birds. Over 18 months, researchers recorded tons of sounds, including foghorn-like calls from black jewelfish and rhythmic ba-ba-ba sounds from batfish. These fish songs, which often involve repetitive calls that overlap in large groups, are especially important for breeding, feeding, and territorial behavior. Deeper in the ocean, NOAA researchers also explored the sounds of the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the Mariana Trench. They used a titanium-encased microphone that managed to survive the crushing pressure, over 1,000 times the atmospheric pressure at sea level. Over 23 days, the recorder captured loads of noises, from the haunting songs of whales to the rumble of distant earthquakes. Now, we've already figured out that the ocean is filled with strange sounds, but you can also hear weird noises above ground. One of the most puzzling is the hum, a low-pitched noise reported by people in specific areas, such as Taos, New Mexico, or Bristol, England. The sound is often described as a faint engine-like drone, and its source remains a mystery. Some researchers think it might be a psychological phenomenon, where people focus on subtle background sounds they might otherwise ignore. In any case, no definitive answer has been found yet. Geological formations can sing too. Utah's Rainbow Bridge, a massive 300-foot-high sandstone arch, vibrates like a guitar string when exposed to sounds, distant earthquakes, or waves near Lake Powell. Scientists have studied its frequencies to understand how such vibrations could affect the bridge's stability over time. Interestingly, visitors to the Rainbow Bridge have reported hearing faint humming sounds too. The skies also have their own eerie noises. For centuries, people in polar regions have described faint sizzling, popping, and cracking sounds, accompanying auroras. A Finnish researcher made the first known recordings of these sounds and traced their origin to electrical discharges in the lower atmosphere, about 230 feet above the ground. These charges, caused by magnetic storms fueling auroras, produce faint sounds during calm and clear nights. Other natural phenomena, such as icebergs grinding against the seafloor or volcanic activity on the ocean floor, produce groans, rumbles, and crackling sounds that scientists study to learn about glacial movements and underwater geological activity. I myself produced many unusual sounds and rumbles, but, that's a subject for another video, or my next annual review.